Hello and welcome. Thank you so much for having me come and speak to you guys this morning. I run the Littlest Tumor Foundation, like Klaus said, but I'm also an NF mom. That's my son, Sammy. And so that is my reason for wanting to be part of the NF cause. So today I'm going to talk to you about our NF Young Adult Leadership Program. We're 3 years strong, and this January we will have our 4th year in Washington, D.C. We had our first 2 years we were live. We were in 2019, 2020. We were in DC right before the pandemic in January. And then last year we did have a program, but we really just invited the previous participants and did the program virtually. But we're very excited to go back to DC this year because there is a lot to be said with young adults being together. Here, just so you know, the program started really with a lot of grassroots work. It wasn't just like, oh, let's do this project. We at the Littlest Tumor Foundation have had tons of interns. Here are some of our interns and volunteers having a booth at a college university. So we've done a lot of grassroots work. We've rolled up our sleeves. They talked about NF research, federal funding. They got a lot of support. We've gotten a lot of support, like signatures that then we brought to representatives. But at the end of every intern and volunteer position that we would have, we would do a exit interview. And it was really interesting to me because I would be like, what did you really love what did you love about interning or volunteering? And they would say they loved advocating. They didn't expect to love advocating, but they did love advocating. But anyways, yeah, so they loved it. And then I realized, okay, well, we've been training all these young people to be advocates for NF research, but they don't have NF, and they're having this amazing experience. They're talking to representatives, they're doing all this grassroots work, but then they're leaving and they're going on, and it's wonderful because they're learning all these leadership skills and they're using it in their own life. But it became really clear we really need to have the young adult community involved in it. So like I said, we've been going to DC for a long time before we started it. We started going to DC in 2012 to advocate for NF funding. In 2015, this was the invitation for our very first congressional briefing. We have NF congressional briefings that we co-host with senators and a senator and with representatives in the House. In the U.S., the government there's 2 houses. And so we have congressional briefings both in the House and in the Senate. Here, I wanted to put a picture. This was from our very first congressional briefing in 2015 in December. And you can see that it's a standing room only. And we feel really, really excited about that because for congressional briefings on the Hill, Capitol Hill, there's an average of like 12 to 20 people. We fill the room. We really work hard to get the staffers and people into the room to listen about NF research, why it's important and why it needs to be funded. So back to the leadership program, which we had our first one in 2019. It's a 5-day program in Washington, D.C. The overview of it is like, we believe it's very important to invest in the young adult community to advance the NF cause, as well as strengthen the NF community. Our goal of the program is to create leaders, advance research, and strengthen the NF community. How we do that, we use empowerment and strength-based theories. We've done a lot of research and literature reviews on best practices. And we also used shared control participation model in developing this program to provide leadership for the NF impacted community. So that's kind of just the overview. And please let me know if you have any questions. So people fly into DC, and on the first day, they're all flying in. Then we go out to a dinner. We kind of have a meet and greet. We do some fun little scenarios. And then on the second day, early in the morning, we have we start with a leadership day. In 2020, this was in the middle is Tilly. She was the leadership coach and she was amazing. And so that entire day, the young adults spend time doing exercises and they learn how to tell their story. And as you can see on the one piece of paper up there, it says deep and brief. How to tell their story deep and brief. They find their voice. They tell their story. They learn how to advocate. They spend the entire day doing this, telling their story. They have fun. And then the next day we spend time on their strengths. Each person we send them a strengths finder book and they do this quiz and they figure out what their strengths are. Then we kind of go over all of that. Like we work on their strengths. So now they've got their story, they've got their strengths. And then we spend time on how is NF research funded in the government. In our government in the United States, there are 2 pots of money that are directed toward NF research. So we go all through how it's funding and why it's important that we continue to fund it. Yeah, we do that. And then, yes, they are able to tell their story as well as advocate for NF research. Then we go up to Capitol Hill. Here's the last time we were live on the Hill. Oh, now there's fences around the Capitol. Hopefully they'll be down. It's a little bit different up there right now. Then we work with a congressional office, a representative, and they get us a room and we have a meet and greet for the young adults. Here are some of the young adults waiting. And we bring in representatives who we have strong connections with. They come in, they talk to the young adults and they talk to them about how to advocate, why it's important to advocate, important to tell their stories. So we bring in representatives and we also bring in staffers. Originally, our foundation started in Wisconsin, so we have a very, very strong connection to the leadership in Wisconsin as well as in Vermont. But this is Representative Glenn Grothman, and he actually is the co-lead on the letter that circulates in Congress for NF research support. And here in this one, we have Representative Gwen Moore in the red, and then she's talking to Representative Mike Gallagher, who he is a co-host of our congressional briefing in the House of Representatives. So it's really nice. Not only do they sign on to support NF research, but they actually show up and they help us in educating young adults on why it's super important to educate them about NF as well as how to advocate. So we feel really good about these connections and about the leadership in the House and the Senate that really steps up and works with the young adults. As you can see, we deliver a lot of joy and happiness with the young adults. Then off they go. There's a lot of time walking through the halls. We visit all the offices, all 435 offices in the House of Representatives and 100 in the Senate. We won't be able to do that this year because of COVID. We'll have to have meetings with all the offices, so it'll be scaled down, a lot of it. So some of them will be virtual, some of them will be in person, but we hit the pavement. Here you can see 2 of our young adults telling their story to a staffer, inviting them to our congressional briefing at the end of the week. And it's really actually amazing to watch the young adults go from the first day when they come in and then finding their voice to actually leading meetings in Congress. And it is just, it's a thrill to see people find their voice and soar, seriously. Here they are, they're just like, oh my God, we love advocating. Here's another meeting. I put this one in because I love this staffer. He's in the tie there. He is so supportive and helpful to us. Like, that is the key to getting federal research funding is befriending the staffers and they help us. And you might be walking down the street. I had to throw this in because Bernie Sanders is actually my senator. I live in Vermont, but you can tell all the young people and myself, how excited we are to meet with Bernie Sanders. And he does, I will let you know, support NF research. But you never know who you're going to run into on the street in DC. So it's a lot of fun, actually. They also, it isn't a vacation, even though the first day they get there, they do like a night monument tour that they can go on. They have to spend a lot of time helping. Like we give folders to all the offices. We have folders at our briefing. We have a lot of information about NF. We send out, we text, we tweet, we email, and we do phone banking to get people to come to the briefing. And the young adults help with the spreadsheets and making sure we email. They also even get their families to help move people to come to the congressional briefing, as well as educate, follow up after meetings. They have to send emails, send information about NF research. So it's not just like, you know, you get up, you go to a few meetings. It is really strenuous. You are getting up in the morning, and we may be working until the night, you know, like 8 o'clock at night. But it is a lot of fun and they love it. I will let you know, I'll show you that we do spend time we put in program evaluation into this program. So we actually do pre and post surveys for quantitative evaluation, but we also do qualitative interviews, and we have those coded. But this past year, we submitted this to the NF Research Conference, and it was accepted. And so, yeah, we were part of even though it was virtual, but we'll do it again. But here you couldn't really see it, but you can see like a few of them. Like, for example, one of their quotes, it was beyond positive. I got to meet 3 people who are going to be lifelong friends who all suffer from NF. And I got to see more of our government works and how we get funding. Yeah, so that is the program in a nutshell. The young adults love it. We love it. And yeah, please let me know if you have any questions.